The G3 is Dell's entry-level gaming laptop and comes in at a more budget-friendly price point compared to their higher-end options, but just how well does it perform in games? I'll be testing out 20 games at all setting levels to show you how well it performs, and also compare it against other gaming laptops afterwards to show you the differences. Just quickly before we jump into the benchmark results, I'll cover off the specs in my unit. I've got the highest spec'd option, so there's an Intel i7-9750H CPU, NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti Max-Q graphics, and 16GB of memory running in dual channel. The G3 is also available with different specs, including i5-9300H CPU and GTX 1050 or 1650 graphics, so expect different results with those configurations. You can find examples and updated prices linked in the description. The Dell G3 allows you to press the G key or F7 to enable high performance mode. This slightly raises the power limit of the CPU and also boosts fan speed. And this is what I've used to test all of these games. We'll only be covering gaming performance in this video, so if you're new to the channel, you'll definitely want to get subscribed for the upcoming thermal testing and full review. Let's start out by going through all 20 games at all setting levels, then afterwards we'll see how the Dell G3 compares with other laptops and see how it stacks up. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode, and even at ultra settings it was still playing well at above the 60 FPS sweet spot, while the 1% low wasn't too far behind, so not really any major noticeable dips in performance, though we could pass 100 FPS at low settings. Battlefield 1 was also tested in campaign mode, and like always is running well and performing better than the newer Battlefield 5 just shown, with almost 100 FPS at ultra, so again no problems running this game even at higher settings. Apex Legends was tested with either all settings at maximum or all settings at the lowest possible values, as it doesn't have predefined setting presets. It was playing alright at max settings, even the 1% low was right on 60 FPS, though we could boost average FPS by 42% by dropping down to minimum settings. The Division 2 was tested with the built-in benchmark. The 1% low at Ultra wasn't actually all that different compared to other higher spec laptops I've tested so far. Otherwise, the average frame rates were looking pretty fair at all other setting levels in this test. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the built-in benchmark, and even at maximum settings, we're still able to average above 60 FPS. But we'll see how the G3 and other laptops compare in this game a bit later. Far Cry New Dawn was tested with the built-in benchmark, and as more of a CPU demanding test, the differences aren't much below other laptops with higher graphics that I've tested, as it mostly comes down to the 9750H. Far Cry 5 was also tested with the built-in benchmark, and the results were ahead of the newer Far Cry New Dawn just covered, and we'll see how this one compares to some other laptops later. Fortnite was tested with the replay feature, and at max settings it was still running very well, with over 100 FPS possible, with the 1% low not being too far behind, so fairly stable performance, though we could significantly improve performance at lower setting levels. Overwatch is another well-optimized game and was tested in the practice range. Again, good performance, with the highest possible epic settings still hitting above 100 FPS even for the 1% low, so running nice and smooth. CSGO was tested using the Euletical FPS benchmark, and as is pretty much always the case, high FPS from this test, and in line with most other laptops I've tested. Given it depends more on the CPU, and most machines I've tested have the same CPU, that's expected. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with the built-in benchmark. Even with maximum ultra settings, we're getting above 100 FPS averages with a 100% render scale, while the 1% low isn't too far behind, so definitely more than acceptable performance for this test. Metro Exodus was tested using the built-in benchmark. Most parts of the game perform a fair bit better than this, so don't take these results as a good indication of what to expect throughout the entire game. It's more of a worst case, but does let you perform the same test to compare against. PUBG was tested using the replay feature, and while the ultra settings were a little lower than most other laptops I test due to the lower powered graphics, the rest of the results aren't much different. Actually, at very low settings, the frame rate is higher than most others I've tested. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was tested with the built-in benchmark, and seems to be a CPU-heavy test, so as a result, the frame rates aren't too far behind most other machines I've covered recently. And given the game doesn't really need a high frame rate to play anyway, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Dota 2 was tested playing in the middle lane with an average amount of action going on, and the results were quite good here, with above 200 FPS at low settings and still around 150 at ultra without any issues that I was able to notice. Watch Dogs 2 uses a lot of resources. However, I can play it just fine with a stable 30 FPS, and as we're getting above this for the 1% low at ultra settings, even at maximum it was playing fine. Though I'd probably just use very high settings, given the 1% low there is higher than the average at ultra and you're not losing much perceivable visual quality. Ghost Recon is another resource intensive game and was tested with the built-in benchmark. Generally we need quite powerful laptops to hit 60 FPS in this test at ultra, but we're still able to hit this with very high settings on this machine, so not bad at all. The Witcher 3 was playable at ultra settings, still above 60 FPS here with fair 1% low performance. Though as a more GPU demanding game that doesn't really benefit too much from high FPS, I'd probably just stick to high settings. Doom was tested using Vulkan, and is a game that pretty much always runs quite well on modern hardware. While the frame rates at higher settings are lower compared to most other machines I've covered, we're still playing just fine at ultra settings, with almost 100 FPS for the 1% low. Strange Brigade was another game that was tested with Vulkan, but was tested with the built-in benchmark, and is another test that generally sees high frame rates and high 1% lows, and that was no exception here. Let's also take a look at how this config of the Dell G3 compares with other laptops to see how it stacks up. Use these results as a rough guide only, as they were tested at different times with different drivers. In Battlefield 5, I've got the Dell G3 highlighted in red near similarly spec'd machines. It's one of the lowest results. As expected, the 1660 Ti Max-Q is the lowest powered graphics I've tested in a long time. With that said though, even at max settings, it's still delivering above 60 FPS with a solid 1% low result too. It's playing just fine. The extra CPU power from the 9750H is able to put it close to the Asus FX505DU underneath with Ryzen CPU in terms of average FPS, but is significantly higher in the 1% low result as that CPU is a fair bit better. These are the results from Far Cry 5 with ultra settings and the built-in benchmark. This is more of a CPU heavy game, so we see a good improvement over the FX505DU just below it. However, the results are otherwise behind the other non-Max-Q 1660 Ti machines that I've tested so far. Again, this is fair as this is the Max-Q variant and it's running with a 20 watt lower power limit too, which is worth keeping in mind. These are the results from Shadow of the Tomb Raider with the built-in benchmark at highest settings. Once again, the G3 is ahead of the FX505DU below it despite the FX505 not having a Max-Q 1660 Ti, and this is due to the lower powered Ryzen CPU that it's paired with. The other 1660 Ti machines are again ahead as expected, though interestingly the G3 was hitting the same results as the thermally throttled 2018 Alienware M15 with 1070 Max-Q. Overall, I think this configuration of the Dell G3 is providing a decent result. While the performance does look lower compared to the rest of the machines I've recently tested, it's not too far below most other 1660 Ti laptops. And when it comes down to it, even at max settings in many games we're still getting good performance. The G3 is also available with the 9300H, GTX 1050 or 1650 graphics, so expect lower results with those models compared to what I've shown here. Despite the lower powered 60 watt Max-Q graphics, unfortunately the machine was running on the hotter side. However, we'll investigate that further in the next G3 video, which will be dedicated to thermal testing, so keep an eye out for that one. Let me know what you thought of the gaming performance of Dell's new 2019 G3 gaming laptop down in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, you'll definitely want to get subscribed for the full review to see everything this machine has to offer.